The Fed has just confirmed what's coming for XRP, and you guys are simply going to need to be patient. Precisely what this is in ultra-modern video. Hit that like button so anybody can see it. And I'm going to start by using gambling, a current clip from Jerome Powell, which I suppose is pretty important. And then we are going to get into quite a few other wonderful portions of information surrounding the Fed, crypto, Congress, so much greater. Let's play this clip first. Look at, with crypto, surely is to take a look at the banks, and you understand we assume it is. Banks are perfectly capable of serve crypto customers as long as they apprehend and may manipulate the risks, and it's safe and secure and sound, as many of our appropriate quantity of our banks proper that we adjust and supervise do that. You know, the threshold has been a bit higher for banks engaged there. You move, so this is something that Jerome Powell is now actively searching at. He's, I imply, speak me approximately cryptocurrency. That's pretty cool. 4 years in the past, this will have never befell. The Fed could never talk about crypto, but now they may be in reality taking this lots greater critically during thinking. And of root, there is a lot of speak of the Fed having more Bitcoin, of course, on their balance sheet. Same with the strategic reserve for the Treasury. These are conversations that an increasing number of human beings are beginning to have, and something that Donald Trump also sincerely wants to. Now, one factor I do want to point out is, which I located very exciting, is Jerome Powell really completely overlooked the words of Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what I suppose which means and what is going to be transpiring from here from the Fed, which I do think by means of the way could be exceptional for all of you men, every person who has any crypto by any means, specifically XRP. But first, we're going to touch a pair of greater things. Number one, President Trump's freezing, quote, what he said is, if the Fed had spent much less time on DEI, gender ideology, inexperienced strength, and fake weather change, inflation might have in no way been a trouble. And Trump is essentially pointing the finger at a completely precise trouble, which I suppose clouds a variety of humans' judgment in politics nowadays. You see, the authorities each few years will come out with a few sort of big pandemic or some kind of large trouble that requires a ton of money to be solved. But the problem is the government never simply solves the trouble. They just release a ton of bogus records to assert that they are tackling the problem, when in fact there are other humans in the international which can be making the hassle tremendously worse than it already is. And they're just kind of disregarding all of those statistics. I assume one of those is weather exchange proper, you know? I recall when I became more youthful, worldwide warming changed into the talk of quite a whole lot, each single instructor inside the college gadget. But what eventually took place is human beings found out there isn't simply any international warming. The temperatures of the arena are not going up because of human interference. So they had to change the terminology from worldwide warming to weather trade. And this is largely what Donald Trump is declaring, which I would given to say I do agree with. I do believe in extra inexperienced power and locating sustainable electricity sources. I assume this is without a doubt a brilliant thing for humanity. Using solar strength, being self-enough is exceptional, no longer dependent on those big oil and gasoline professionals. That's extraordinary. I believe this stuff, however, on the subject of climate alternate, Delaware the First, gender ideology, that is where I genuinely draw the line. And I think whilst the Fed is making a whole lot of their decisions primarily based on that, while their job is to manipulate the economy, to have a look at numbers and no longer these woke ideology nonsense matters, it actually undermines what they may be really searching to perform and makes them look, I do not know, form of silly, and that they lose a whole lot of public faith. And I suppose this is a big purpose as to why Jerome Powell isn't taken severely via most humans. And I do think that he's on his manner out the door. There's about to be a lot of political stress against him. And I suppose Donald Trump goes to be one of the predominant proponents of that. He's making this very clean along with his rates. Abolishing the Fed is something that I do think is absolutely feasible to be happening this year. And so we got to invite ourselves, if the Fed is no longer around, what will be properly. We're going to dive a touch bit deeper into that in a couple of minutes. I do assume it is going to be quite cool. Now, speaking of the economy, there was a couple different matters that Jerome Powell did say. He says, we don't want to attend for 2% inflation to reduce interest costs. I do suppose this is an important factor. First, I will say that most of the information, pretty tons, all the information that does come from the Fed is bogus, and it's always revised a couple of months later. And it is by no means definitely precisely what they're telling you. It, without a doubt, is when you examine the actual inflation numbers outside of what they are reporting. But despite the fact that expertise Jerome Powell's messaging is a really clear indicator of what he is going to be doing inside the future, and what he does in the future will truly play a large function on when that money printer goes to go on, whilst interest rates are going to go down. But he says basically that we don't need to attend for 2% inflation to reduce interest costs. That's sincerely vital. Essentially what he is saying is, you understand, if we are at 4% inflation, he's going to be slicing interest prices. If we are at 2.2%, he is going to be cutting interest prices. And so take a look at the numbers that he is reporting goes to be actually critical due to the fact we are going to get a higher idea of what he is going to certainly do very soon. And slicing rates, turning the money printer on, goes to be an exquisite element for crypto, because no one needs a hyperinflationary asset that loses its fee, and those want that allows you to hold their wealth. XRP is the way, HBAR is the manner, in my point of view. We can also see a few massive trends are going on a country-by-country foundation in the United States. Number one, the Illinois state representative is introducing a bill to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And also, this bill does include information about a crypto reserve as nicely simply outdoor of Bitcoin, not simply Bitcoin. An equal issue with Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He unveiled every other plan to establish a Texas Bitcoin reserve as well. You can see these files from Dan Patrick represented right here. And this is truly cool. It's really something that we do need to be, I assume, bouncing on right now and letting recognize all your senators, all of your congressmen on your state, something country you are in, that is something which you want, due to the fact they are in reality going to represent you, and they are going to make sure that it takes place as it's in anyone's best hobby to see that become a truth. Most of America now has a few type of cryptocurrency of their portfolio. And so I suppose a Bitcoin reserve, a strategic crypto reserve, all of this is going to go a really long way into solidifying XRP into the mainstream. Now, with that being stated, I wanted to present a few accurate information, approximately Ripple and XRP especially. You can see that the RLUSD is now being featured in the Wall Street Journal, massive complete web page devoted to Ripple USD. This is certainly cool. Over the route of the closing to 4 months, there may be been such a lot of new individuals becoming a member of into the XRP military. And I think that this is simplest going to go up with some of various things. One, advertising, I think older generations seeing this technology and how it's being used is quite cool. And then secondly, of direction ETFs, that is going to be without a doubt large as well, to get a variety of these other humans which have not yet were given concerned in XRP concerned. And this is a first step closer to something virtually superb. Now, talking of all that, other piece of appropriate news is the SEC is going to create their personal crypto mission pressure centered entirely on cryptocurrency, giving that framework. This was announced on Bloomberg Crypto today, and they gave some more info as to what this